Intel stock is below $40 right now as the stock is sitting at 37. We can see year to date, the stock is down roughly 21%. One of the few semiconductor companies that is down right now. In the past year, Intel is up roughly 17.5%. On today's episode, I want to do the following. Intel just had a vision event where they took a closer look at some new AI accelerators, some new CPUs. We're also going to just take a closer look at Intel in general and see is now a great time to buy this semiconductor giant. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
I think the first thing we should kind of start off is looking at Intel and their Foundry side. So most recently, we kind of saw Intel announce that they're still losing about $7 billion in their Foundry business. And they're expected to lose a little bit more in 2024 due to how heavy of an investment it is to build semiconductor manufacturing facilities. Well, luckily for Intel, there's a lot of countries giving kind of incentives. And on March 20th of 2024, the United States Department did announce that they're going to be giving up to $8.5 billion in potential direct funding for Intel, as they are investing a lot all over the United States. Outside of that direct funding, Intel is also expected to get forms of loan of up to $11 billion. The great thing is these loans come in at a very, very low cost, and the company is also going to be qualified for a form of tax credit based on how much money they spend in capital expenditure. So while the semiconductor manufacturing foundry business is expensive, they are getting tons of help from countries like United States. We're also seeing similar types of incentives coming out in Europe. So if there was a perfect time for Intel to really focus in the foundry space, I do believe it's now. Before we go any further, we are now on the road to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you all for the crazy support. So if you haven't and are enjoying the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Finally, if you want to support the channel a little bit more, make sure to check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Now back to today's episode. Now, taking a closer look at the AI accelerator market. So Intel earlier this week had a vision event. So here in their vision event, they talked about three main markets: their AI accelerator, their server CPUs, and the AI PC market for the client space. Now, we're going to start off with their AI accelerator. So their AI accelerator is known as Gaudi, and Gaudi is now it's currently on its second generation, and they just announced the third generation. And this third generation is expected to see a huge boost, up to 4 times AI compute compared to its previous version, Gaudi 2. Now, Gaudi 2 is the only AI accelerator that has been benchmarked using this ML perf, which kind of showcases that is a somewhat of an alternative to the H100. And that's one thing Intel really focuses on. It says that, hey, look, our AI accelerators is great for AI. We have a cheaper chip, even though it might not be as powerful as the overall chips that are out right now. We definitely have some form of competitive product when it comes to pricing. Now, if we take a closer look at Intel Gaudi 3 Accelerator, it is a 5 nanometer process, and this is mainly built for high-performance AI compute solution. One thing I'm not a fan of, and it kind of showcases maybe that Intel is a little bit behind when it comes to the AI accelerator market, it has about 128 gigs of HBM E2 memory. And if you have been familiar with this channel, we've seen that NVIDIA and AMD are already using HBM3, and for the new generation of NVIDIA, they're already focusing on HBM E3. So it showcases how maybe Intel might be a generation behind here in the AI accelerator space. Now, one thing that really gets me excited here for Intel, and while I don't believe this is going to take any market share from NVIDIA, it does open up the opportunity for Intel to get money from the AI space. And this is actually very bullish in my opinion, as they can grow in this space. But they seem to maybe be focusing in a different customer opposed to NVIDIA. NVIDIA is more only focusing on those cloud server providers that are buying hundreds and thousands of GPUs, where Intel is going to be focusing more on the the enterprise market. Maybe you are a small business, not even a small business. If you're an enterprise that wants to build some form of AI solution, you want to do it on premise, you're already working with Intel CPU, well, maybe work with their AI accelerators as well. So here we can see that Intel's focusing more on the enterprise market. Here we can also see that Intel is kind of comparing their Gaudi 3 versus the H100. They mention it's faster in time to train, faster in inferencing, better in power efficiency, and they even say it's even faster than NVIDIA's H200 in certain models. That I would have to take with I would have to look at other benchmarks to really determine that. But it is at least another alternative to the H100, especially if you can't get the H100 in line. They mentioned that Intel's Gaudi 3 accelerator will be available to OEMs like Supermicro, Lenovo, HPE, Dell Technologies in the second quarter of this year, and those items will most likely start to ship in the third quarter of 2024. So this is definitely a bullish growth for Intel. They can definitely make some form of money here in the AI accelerator space, but just because it's bullish for Intel doesn't necessarily mean it's bearish for NVIDIA. The other thing that they do mention is upcoming Gaudi 3. While Gaudi 3 is just an AI accelerator, next year, in theory, they should be coming out with Falcon Shores, which is a GPU. Now, that one might be a true competitor to NVIDIA, but we'll have to wait to see a year from now to see how that comes out. Now, the second thing Intel really announced here was their Xeon 6 processor. So this is their server CPU. Within this server CPU, they did announce two of them. They announced one that is the Sierra Forest, which has E-cores. This is meant to be not a performance player, but more of a power efficiency player. Then they have, and that's coming out in this quarter. So that's really good for the CPU market, especially in the server side. Then they have Intel Xeon P-cores, which is codenamed Granite Rapids. This is expected to be their performance, their strong powerhouse CPU for this generation. And Intel is really focusing on bringing AI inferencing to the CPU side. And this one, the Granite Rapids, is the one that's really, that in my opinion, Intel investors should be excited about. One thing to also note is these Sierra Forest and Granite Rapids are based on Intel 3. So we can see Intel is focusing on delivering those 5 nodes in 4 years. Intel 3 is, in my opinion, they're moving in the right direction. So we can definitely see that they're doing great news here for their foundry and their technology side. Now, the final thing they really talk about, and before I look at their final thing, I just wanted to showcase how Hugging Face is a huge company that works with AI models. They have published a lot of blogs where Intel is showcasing that, hey, look, their CPUs alone are great for inferencing in certain workloads. We can see one that came out March 15th of 2024, another one that came out on April 3rd of 2024. So Intel, in my opinion, is the only CPU player. I don't see AMD doing this where they're talking with big model companies and showcasing that, hey, look, our CPUs are great for AI workloads as well. So that's why sometimes I tend to be a little bit bullish on Intel because it does seem like things are going in the right direction. We have their Intel 3 right going. We have them getting money in the foundry business. We see them moving in the AI accelerator market. And we also see them focusing here on AI inferencing in the CPU side. And then the final thing, they do talk that, hey, look, they're going to come out with their upcoming processor for the client market later this year. And that's expected to have about 45 TOPS for their NPU. And this is going to fuel the next generation of AI PC. This bodes well as right now we are in this growth in the PC market. So Intel can definitely get a nice amount of revenue coming in here from the client computing space. Now, I did mention a lot of great news for Intel, but there's a lot and a lot of bad news, right? So I want to tone it down a little bit. So the bad, first, competition in the server CPU. AMD is already working on their next generation that should come out this year. We did see it in my previous episode where I talk about Google. Google has a new ARM CPU. We also see other big tech players also create their CPU players as well. Amazon, Microsoft all have ARM-based CPU. So it does seem like the CPU space is growing at a very slow pace right now, that even the big tech players are willing to create their own CPU solutions. So something to keep in mind out. The foundry business peak loss is expected in 2024, and we still really need to see if they are going to be some form of competition versus TSMC. Outside of the CPU server space, there's also heavy competition in client CPU from companies like Qualcomm, like AMD, like Apple, as the AI PC race is starting. So there's a lot of competition in this space. But if you believe Intel can do good in the foundry business, if they could do good in the AI accelerator business, I personally think Intel's looking at a cheap valuation. So, I mean, I'm not 100% bullish on Intel, but if you were to put me on the scales to see, are you more bearish or more bullish on on Intel? Do you think they're going to do good on the AI accelerator? Do you think they're going to do good on the foundry side? For both of those questions, I think I'm leaning a little bit more to yes. So Intel forward PE ratio of 16.15 doesn't look crazy, but it all depends if they execute correctly in the foundry business and the AI accelerator business. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.